It's now been over 3 years since we've had Sadiq Khan as the Mayor of London, unfortunately. Now, during this time, we've seen a lot of promises being broken by Sadiq Khan. During his campaign to become Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan promised a specific target to build more houses, which he failed. He promised to freeze TfL train ticket prices. He failed. And he promised to tackle the policing issue in London, and again, he failed. When it comes to policing and the problem that we're having on the streets of London with our kids' lives being at risk, he's, instead of taking responsibility for someone who's actually in charge of policing and the funding and the management of the Metropolitan Police in London, he's shifting the blame to central government and everyone else. In a recent tweet, Sadiq Khan said, "I have done all I can to support police numbers, investing an additional £110 million into policing last year, but the government must step up and give us the funding we need to ensure the Met Police recruitment does not slow and increasing numbers can be sustained." The level of hypocrisy of this guy is completely astonishing. He's complaining about the lack of funding and lack of police strategy when it comes to the London safety. And this is the same guy who has restricted stop and search on the streets of London. He's given his pals huge pay increases. He spent £300,000 on lavish parties, and all he's been doing as mayor is been telling Londoners what to eat and what not to eat, and he spent the rest of the time attacking Brexit and Donald Trump. But we have more numbers to show what else he's been spending on instead of actually the priorities of London and Londoners. He spent £3 million extra on PR, he spent £13 million on a promotional company, he spent £19 million extra on bureaucrats, and £33 million on free travel for lodgers and flatmates of TfL staff. Now, some of these stuff are absolutely ridiculous, especially the self-promotional campaigns. For example, look at this. Sadiq Khan recently billed taxpayers £175,000 for a self-promoting PR campaign. He's always somehow managed to find a few quid down the back of the sofa when it comes to his cronies or poorly disguised propaganda machines. The new revelation shows that his idiotic London is Open campaign has now cost the taxpayer a hefty £175,000 since he launched it in 2016. This doesn't even account for the £3 million New Year fireworks, which Sadiq Khan also turned it into a giant anti-Brexit attention-seeking display. In fact, it's barely a drop in the ocean of Sadiq's bloated PR budget. There are more examples of his hypocrisy. For example, he spent a lot of time attacking a lot of people at the top that are taking advantage of everyone else in London, and especially certain companies, and at the same time, this happens. Sadiq Khan's lawyer wife is paid via a low-tax personal services firm, even though he's promised to stamp them out. Sadiq Khan today risked being branded a hypocrite after he criticized workers who get paid through their own company, even though his own wife does the same thing. The Mayor of London's solicitor wife, Sadia, has raked in thousands through her own personal service company. I mean, well done. The more you do this, the more people are going to hate your establishment. Now, moving on to his other empty promises and idiotic policies. He promised to build a lot of houses in London. He's failed to do that. So he started to come up with a new idea, which is a very, very old-fashioned, outdated policy that's never worked in the history of humanity: rent control. A few weeks ago, Sadiq Khan decided to launch a policy that he couldn't actually even implement himself. Sadiq Khan's flagship rent control policy was finally set to be rolled out a few weeks ago after multiple delays. Evidently, they decided on that Thursday that it wasn't the ideal time for it after all. Rumour had it that it was going to be Len McCluskey's Unite Union who would have the dubious honour of hosting that launch of Sadiq's dire policy. The policy which has either pushed rents sharply up or rental accommodation quality and supply sharply down pretty much everywhere it's been introduced. Now, on the issue of housing and especially rent control, I was recently talking to Andrew Buff, the Conservative Assembly member at City Hall, and I can tell you that he has a lot to say about this.
Sadiq Khan says he's quite proud of his housing record. So what are actually the facts? Well, the government awarded him £4.8 billion, a record amount, to build 116,000 homes. He's now over halfway through that programme, and he's only started a third of those. He promised to develop homes, 10,000 homes, on TfL land. He's only started 322. And the type of homes he is building are not the kind of homes that Londoners actually need. We need more family homes being developed for those growing families, London, who don't want to have to move out just because they can't get somewhere for their families to grow. And yet he's not building the 3 and 4 bedroom homes that Londoners so desperately need. Is there any wonder, therefore, that he's trying to distract Londoners by coming up with populist policies like rent controls? A policy, incidentally, that's never worked anywhere it's actually been applied. So the truth is clear. Sadiq Khan has failed on his housing policies, and he needs to change them radically in order to develop the homes that Londoners desperately need.
Now, the next election for London Mayor is in 2020, less than a year to go. And this is our only chance to vote Sadiq Khan out of office. And at the moment, the best option and the best candidate we have as a challenger is the Conservative candidate, Sean Bailey. So make sure you support his campaign and vote for him when the time comes. And in the meantime, Sadiq Khan's going to be going around and doing what he usually does, attacking Brexit, attacking Donald Trump, and now his new hobby, attacking Boris Johnson. Now, his problem with Boris Johnson and the Conservative government is that apparently Boris has a lot of money, and we can't have any leader who has a lot of money. There was a list that was published. No, we don't know how accurate it is, but it's the same list, so we're going to go with that number that showed that Boris Johnson has about £2 million. But we found something interesting on that same list. Now, on this list, Boris apparently has $2 million. And then Jeremy Corbyn, $4 million. So does that mean Sadiq Khan is not going to be supporting the Labour Party? Now make sure you share this video so people know the truth about Sadiq Khan and his track record in London. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle will be somewhere down here. And if you want to support this channel, you could join the Cabinet Club. The link will be in the description. And as always, make sure you subscribe, click on the notification bell next to it, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.